I'm standing in the bridal suite, looking at myself in the mirror, when my maid of honor bursts through the door with a look on her face that makes my blood run cold. Claire, there's a woman downstairs. She says she's married to David. The lipstick I'm holding slips from my fingers and clatters onto the marble counter. For a moment, I can't breathe, can't think, can't process what my best friend just said. What? A woman at the venue. She showed up 10 minutes ago demanding to see you. Security tried to stop her, but she's screaming that David is her husband, that you're about to marry a man who's already married. My wedding is supposed to start in 30 minutes. 250 guests are seated in the garden. My father is waiting downstairs to walk me down the aisle. My $8,000 Monique Luellier dress is perfect. My hair and makeup took 3 hours. Everything is exactly as I'd planned for the past year. And some stranger is claiming my fiancé is already married. My name is Claire Thompson. I'm 29 years old. I'm a marketing executive in Manhattan making $120,000 a year. 1 year ago, I met the man I thought was perfect. 6 months ago, he proposed. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it's the day I learned everything was a lie. This is the story of how I discovered my fiancé was using me for a green card, how his real wife showed up at our wedding to stop it, and what I did when I realized the man I loved was a fraud. I met David Moreau at a charity gala in Midtown. I was there representing my firm, networking with potential clients, sipping overpriced champagne, and making small talk with strangers in tuxedos. He was standing by the bar, looking slightly out of place in a way that made him seem approachable. Tall, dark hair, olive skin, warm brown eyes, French accent that made everything he said sound like poetry. "You look as bored as I feel," he said when I approached the bar for a refill. I laughed. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's equally desperate to leave. He extended his hand. David Moreau, software consultant, reluctant gala attendee. Claire Thompson, marketing executive, professional small talker. I shook his hand. His grip was warm, confident. What brings a reluctant attendee to a charity gala? My company bought a table, said it was good for business development. I think they just wanted an excuse to write off champagne as a business expense. His smile was self-deprecating, charming. What about you? Same, basically, except I actually have to network, justify the champagne. How about we skip the networking and just enjoy the champagne? We spent the rest of the evening talking. He told me he'd moved to New York from Paris 3 years ago on a work visa, that he was trying to build a career in tech consulting, but finding it difficult as a foreigner, that he missed France, but loved the energy of New York. I told him about my job, my tiny apartment in the West Village that cost more than my parents' mortgage, my dream of running my own agency someday. We discovered we both loved jazz, hated morning people, and had complicated relationships with our families. By the time the gala ended, I knew I wanted to see him again. "Can I take you to dinner?" he asked as we stood outside waiting for cabs. "I'd like that." That was the beginning. The first few months were like a dream. David was attentive, romantic, thoughtful in ways I'd never experienced. He sent flowers to my office, left little notes in my apartment when he stayed over, cooked me elaborate French meals, and taught me phrases in French that made me laugh at my terrible pronunciation. "Tu es magnifique," he'd whisper. "You are beautiful." I fell hard, faster than I'd ever fallen for anyone. My friends loved him. My parents loved him. Even my normally cynical brother said, "This guy seems like the real deal, Claire. Don't screw it up." We moved in together after 6 months. His lease was ending, and spending every night together anyway seemed wasteful. My apartment was small, but we made it work. His clothes in half my closet, his French press next to my Keurig, his guitar in the corner of the living room. It felt like building a life together, like this was what adult relationships were supposed to look like. I ignored the small inconsistencies, the little things that didn't quite add up, like how he was vague about his job. Consulting covered a lot of ground, and when I asked for specifics, he'd change the subject. Work is boring, tell me about your day instead. Or how he never wanted to video chat when he traveled for business. The hotel Wi-Fi is terrible, let's just text. Or how his apartment was weirdly impersonal when I first visited. Expensive furniture, but no photos, no personal touches, like a staged Airbnb. I'm not sentimental, he explained. I travel light. Or how he got tense whenever immigration came up in conversation. I'd mention news about visa policies or work permits, and he'd shut down. It's stressful. I don't like thinking about it. I thought I was being supportive by not pushing. I thought I was respecting his boundaries. I didn't realize I was being groomed. Everything changed about 8 months into our relationship. David came home from work one evening looking devastated. He sat on the couch, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. David, what's wrong? What happened? My work visa. They denied the extension. My stomach dropped. What? Why? The company is restructuring. They're not renewing sponsorships for foreign workers. I have 60 days to leave the country. He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. Claire, I have to go back to France. No, there has to be another option. Can you find a different sponsor? Apply for a different visa? I've been trying, but the process takes months, sometimes years, and I'm running out of time. His voice broke. I don't want to lose you, but I can't stay. I grabbed his hands. We'll figure this out. I'll help you. We'll hire the best immigration lawyer in the city. Claire. He pulled his hands away gently. There's only one way I can stay legally. My breath caught. What? Marriage. If I marry a U.S. citizen, I can apply for a green card. I can stay. He shook his head quickly. But I can't ask you to do that. We've only been together 8 months. It's too soon. It's too much to ask. David. He pulled his hands away gently. I should just go back to France. It's the right thing. I won't manipulate you into marrying me before you're ready. But I was already shaking my head, already feeling panic at the thought of losing him. No, I don't want you to go. Claire, you can't. Marry me. The words came out before I could stop them. I love you. I was going to say yes eventually anyway. Let's just do it now instead of later. You can't marry me because of my visa situation. That's insane. I'm marrying you because I love you. The visa is just timing. I cupped his face in my hands. Marry me, please. I don't want to lose you. He searched my face for a long moment, then nodded. Yes, God, yes, I love you so much. We kissed, and I felt like I'd saved him, like we'd overcome an obstacle together, like this proved how strong our love was. I had no idea he'd been planning this from the moment we met. We hired an immigration lawyer immediately. Her name was Sandra Martinez, a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in marriage-based green card applications. I need to be very direct with you both, she said during our first consultation. USCIS scrutinizes these cases heavily. They're looking for fraud, people who marry solely for immigration benefits. You'll need to prove your relationship is genuine. It is genuine, I said firmly. I believe you, but you'll need documentation, joint bank accounts, shared lease, photos together, witnesses who can testify to your relationship. USCIS will interview you separately and ask detailed questions about each other's lives. If your answers don't match perfectly, they'll deny the application and potentially file fraud charges. David squeezed my hand. We have nothing to hide. Sandra nodded. Good. Then let's begin the process. We did everything she asked. Opened a joint checking account. David contributed $1,000 from his savings. I put in $15,000. Added his name to my lease. Took hundreds of photos together at restaurants, museums, friends' parties. The more evidence, the better, Sandra explained. They're trained to spot fake relationships. They look for inconsistencies, gaps in knowledge about each other, signs you don't actually live together. David and I studied each other like we were preparing for finals. I memorized his coffee order, espresso, no sugar, his mother's name, Margot, his childhood dog, a beagle named Bizou, his biggest fear, failure. He memorized mine. My favorite color, navy blue, my morning routine, shower first, then coffee, my allergies, penicillin and shellfish, my dream, to own my own agency. Looking back, I realize how transactional it all was. We were building a case file, not deepening our relationship. But at the time, I thought we were just navigating bureaucracy together. I was so naive. We got married at City Hall on a rainy afternoon. Just us, two witnesses, my best friend Rachel and David's friend Philippe, and a clerk who'd performed this ceremony 10,000 times before. Do you, Claire Elizabeth Thompson, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Do you, David Antoine Moreau, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. We kissed. Rachel cheered. Philippe took photos on his phone. We went to dinner afterward at a nice French restaurant in Soho, drank wine, made toasts. David gave me a simple gold band. We'd decided to save money for the real wedding later, the big celebration with all our family and friends. I know this isn't the wedding you dreamed of, he said, holding my hand across the table, but I promise we'll do it right. Big ceremony, beautiful dress, all of it. I don't need a big wedding, I just need you. I kissed his hand. This was perfect. That night, David officially moved all his belongings into my apartment. We fell asleep as husband and wife, legally married, officially beginning our life together. I slept peacefully, completely unaware that my new husband was lying awake beside me, probably calculating how long he needed to maintain this charade. The months after our courthouse wedding were strange. We were married, living together, but something felt off. David became more distant. He traveled more frequently for consulting projects, sometimes for entire weeks. He was on his phone constantly, texting people he said were clients. He started spending money we didn't have, expensive watches, designer clothes, dinners at restaurants beyond our budget. Where is all this money coming from? I asked one night when he came home with a Rolex that cost more than 3 months of rent. Bonus from a big client, he said smoothly. I told you the Paris project was lucrative. You never tell me details about these projects. Because they're confidential, NDAs and all that. He kissed my forehead. Why are you being paranoid about a watch? I'm not paranoid. I'm your wife. I should know about our finances. Our finances? His expression hardened. It's my money from my work. We're married. We have joint accounts now. Everything is our finances. Maybe you should focus on your own career instead of interrogating me about mine. He grabbed the watch and went into the bedroom, closing the door firmly behind him. I stood in the kitchen, stung and confused. This wasn't the David I'd married. That man had been warm, attentive, grateful. This version was cold, defensive, secretive. But I pushed down my doubts. Marriage was an adjustment, right? We were learning to live together, manage finances together, navigate challenges. Once the green card stress was over, things would improve. At least, that's what I told myself. My best friend Rachel was the first person to voice what I didn't want to hear. We were having brunch at our usual spot while David was away on another business trip. I was venting about our recent arguments, how different he seemed, how distant our relationship had become. Rachel set down her mimosa and looked at me seriously. Claire, I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think before you answer. Okay, an honest one, because from where I'm sitting, this looks like a green card marriage. It's not. We're really married. We love each other. Do you? Or do you love him while he's using you? She leaned forward. Think about the timeline. He showed interest right when his visa was about to expire, moved the relationship along really fast. Then conveniently his visa gets denied and, oh, marriage is the only solution. Now you're married, but he's distant, secretive, spending money he shouldn't have. Does any of that sound like a man who's in love? You don't understand the pressure he's under. I understand that you've been making excuses for him for months. When does he start showing up for you? When does he sacrifice something? What has he actually given you besides headaches and doubt? I wanted to argue, to defend him, to list all the ways David had been good to me, but I couldn't think of any recent examples. Everything good had been in the first few months, before the marriage, before he got what he needed. Even if you're right, I said quietly, what am I supposed to do? We're already married. I've already filed the paperwork. If this is fraud, I'm implicated too. Then you protect yourself. Talk to Sandra about what happens if this goes wrong. Figure out your legal options. Rachel grabbed my hand. Claire, I'm your friend. I've known you since college. I watched you work your ass off to build your career. I will not watch you throw it all away for a man who might be scamming you. I went home that day with her words echoing in my head, looked around my apartment at David's things scattered everywhere, his clothes, his shoes, his expensive new purchases, and I wondered if I even knew who my husband really was.
I started paying attention, really paying attention. To the phone calls David took in another room, speaking rapid French I couldn't understand. To the texts he quickly dismissed when I walked by. To the way he'd close his laptop whenever I entered the room. To the business trips that never had clear details about where he was going or who he was meeting. To the money he was spending, despite claiming his visa situation prevented him from working legally. Everything Rachel said made sense. But I needed proof. Real proof, not just suspicion and paranoia. One evening, while David was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at it reflexively and froze. The message preview showed a name, Isabel. Isabel, when are you filing the green card paperwork? It's been long enough. My heart started pounding. Who was Isabel? I picked up the phone. It was unlocked. He must have forgotten to lock it before getting in the shower. I knew this was wrong, invasion of privacy, violation of trust. But if he was committing fraud, if he was using me, didn't I have a right to know? I opened the messages. The first thing I saw made my hands shake so badly I almost dropped the phone. Isabel, how is the American wife treating you? David, she's fine, naive but generous, pays for everything while playing the supportive wife. Isabel, good. Keep her happy until you get permanent residency. Then you can divorce her and come home. David, can't wait. Playing devoted husband is exhausting. Isabel, you're doing great, Mon Amour. Just a few more months and you'll be free. We can finally be together properly. Mon Amour, my love. I scrolled up, reading older messages with mounting horror. Isabel, found you a perfect target. Marketing exec, good salary, lonely. American-born, so no immigration issues. David, send me her information. I'll make contact at the charity event. Isabel, remember, move fast but not too fast. Make her think marriage is her idea. Americans love feeling like heroes. David, I know how to do this. It's not my first time. Not his first time. He'd done this before. I kept scrolling, compulsively, even though every message was like a knife to the chest. Found photos, David with a beautiful woman I didn't recognize, kissing, in bed together, at cafes in Paris, on beaches I'd never visited. The timestamps were recent, from after our marriage. He'd been cheating on me our entire marriage. No, not cheating, because you can't cheat on someone you never loved in the first place. I was a mark, a green card pathway, a transaction. The shower turned off. I heard David moving around in the bathroom. Panic seized me. I couldn't let him know I'd found this. Not yet. Not until I figured out what to do. I took screenshots of everything, dozens of them, sent them to my personal email,
backed them up to cloud storage. Then I carefully placed his phone back exactly where I'd found it. I was sitting on the bed staring at nothing when David came out wrapped in a towel. "You okay, Cherie? You look pale." Cherie. Darling. Such an easy endearment when you don't mean it. "I'm fine, just tired." He kissed the top of my head absently, already reaching for his phone. "I need to make a work call. I'll be in the living room." He left. I sat there alone, my whole world crumbling around me. Everything had been a lie. Our meet-cute at the gala, the whirlwind romance, the visa crisis, the proposal, the marriage. All of it carefully orchestrated by a man who saw me as nothing more than a green card dispenser. And this woman, Isabel, she'd helped him, coached him, provided the information about me. She was part of this. Was she his girlfriend? His partner in crime? Both? I pulled up the photos again, studied her face. Dark hair, elegant features, expensive clothes. She looked French, Parisian probably. In one photo I could see her hand and a ring, a wedding band. My stomach dropped. I zoomed in, enhanced the image. It wasn't just any ring, it was ornate, vintage-looking, and on her other hand I could see the edge of what looked like a marriage certificate in the background of another photo. I pulled up a reverse image search on one of the clearer photos. Found her Instagram profile, Isabelle Moreau. Moreau, David's last name. I clicked through her profile, photos of Paris, of art galleries, of David. Dozens of photos with David, going back years, before I'd ever met him. Her bio said, wife, art dealer, Parisian. Wife. David was already married, had been the entire time. Our marriage wasn't just fraud, it was bigamy. I spent the next 3 hours in a daze, sitting on the bathroom floor, scrolling through Isabel's Instagram, piecing together the truth. In the photos, Isabel and David had been married for at least 5 years based on the photo archive. They lived together in Paris, or had before David came to New York. She ran a small art gallery, posted photos of their life together, their apartment, their friends. Then, about 3 years ago, the photos with David became less frequent, more staged. She posted about missing him, about long-distance love. That's when he'd come to New York, when he'd started his green card hunting. And based on the messages I'd read, this wasn't his first attempt. There had been others, other women he'd targeted, romanced, and possibly married. I was just the latest victim. I wanted to confront him immediately, to throw the evidence in his face and watch him scramble to explain. But I remembered what Rachel said, protect yourself. If David was committing immigration fraud, if Isabel was helping, if this was an organized scheme, I needed to be smart, needed to document everything, needed professional help. I texted Sandra, my immigration lawyer, need to meet ASAP, found evidence David might be committing fraud. What do I do? She called me within 5 minutes.
Claire, where are you right now? Is David there? He's in the living room. I'm in the bathroom. Okay, listen very carefully. Don't confront him. Don't tell him you know anything. Can you act normal for a few more days? I don't know. Sandra, he's been using me. The messages, the photos. He has a wife in Paris. He's been planning this whole thing. I believe you, but if you confront him now, he might flee or destroy evidence. I need you to keep pretending everything is fine while I contact the authorities. What authorities? U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has a fraud division. So does ICE. Marriage fraud is a federal crime, up to 5 years in prison and $250,000 in fines. If David entered into this marriage solely for immigration benefits, while already married to someone else, he's committed multiple felonies. But what about me? I filed the application. Am I in trouble? Not if you're a victim. The moment you discovered the fraud and reported it, you're protected. But Claire, you have to be willing to cooperate fully, provide evidence, possibly testify. Are you prepared to do that? I thought about David in the other room, texting God knows who, probably laughing with Isabel about what a fool I was. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes. Good. Send me all the screenshots, everything you found. I'm going to connect you with federal investigators. In the meantime, act completely normal. Can you do that? I think so. You have to do more than think. If he suspects you know, this whole thing could fall apart. We need time to build the case. I agreed, hung up, stared at myself in the bathroom mirror. My face looked the same, but everything else had changed. I was no longer a naive wife supporting her immigrant husband. I was bait in a federal investigation, and I had to play the role perfectly. The next week was the hardest of my life. I had to wake up next to David every morning and pretend I didn't know he was texting another woman, his real wife, about when he could finally dump me. Had to listen to him talk about our future while knowing he had no intention of staying. Had to smile and nod when he talked about the green card application, knowing every word was manipulation. Sandra says we should file soon, I mentioned one evening over dinner. We have enough documentation now. David's face lit up. Genuine excitement, the first real emotion I'd seen from him in weeks. Really? That's wonderful, chérie. Yeah, she wants to meet with us next week to go over everything, make sure we're ready for the interview. Perfect. This is such good news. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I know it's been stressful. Thank you for being so patient through all this. I looked at his face, handsome, earnest, completely false, and felt nothing but rage. But I smiled. Of course, we're in this together. Meanwhile, Sandra was coordinating with immigration fraud investigators. They loved the evidence I'd provided, the messages with Isabel, the photos, the marriage certificate I'd found through public wrench French records showing David and Isabel had married 5 years ago in Lyon. This is one of the clearest fraud cases we've seen, the lead investigator told me during a phone call. Most of the time, we have suspicions but no proof. You've handed us everything. What happens now? We continue investigating, look into David's immigration history, financial records, previous relationships. We also need to identify everyone involved in this scheme. This Isabel, she's clearly a co-conspirator, but there might be others, people who helped arrange this, provided fake documentation, coached him through the process. How long will this take? A few weeks, maybe a month. We want to have everything ready before we make arrests. In the meantime, continue acting normal. We may ask you to help us set up a meeting, get David and Isabel in the same place if possible. She's in Paris. Actually, she's not. We've been tracking her movements. She flew into JFK 3 days ago. My blood ran cold. She's here, in New York? Yes, staying at a hotel in Brooklyn. We think David and Isabel are planning to meet soon, maybe to discuss next steps now that you're about to file the green card application. I felt sick. His wife was in New York and he hadn't mentioned it, was probably planning to see her while I was at work. The investigator continued. If we can catch them together on record discussing the fraud, it strengthens the case significantly. Would you be willing to help arrange that? How? Suggest filing the application this week. Make it seem urgent. Tell David you want to celebrate. Chances are he'll want to meet with Isabel to discuss strategy. We'll be monitoring his communications. When they meet, we'll document everything. I agreed, because at this point, what choice did I have? That night, I told David we should file the green card application immediately and have a celebration to mark the occasion. Let's do something special, I said, just the two of us, or maybe with Philippe and some of your other friends. I feel like we've been so stressed about the immigration stuff. We should celebrate finally being on the other side of it. David's expression was careful, calculating. Let me check with Philippe about his schedule. Great, maybe this weekend? I'll see what I can arrange. He disappeared into the bedroom with his phone. I heard him speaking in rapid French, presumably to Isabel, not Philippe. An hour later, he emerged. How about Saturday? There's a wine bar in Dumbo that just opened. Very nice, good reviews. We could go there. Dumbo, Brooklyn, where Isabel was staying. Perfect, I said, smiling through the rage. Can't wait.
Saturday arrived. I spent hours getting ready, not because I wanted to look good for David, but because I wanted to look perfect when this all fell apart. I wore a navy blue dress he'd once complimented, styled my hair in loose waves, did my makeup carefully. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman who looked confident, happy, in love. The performance of a lifetime. David wore one of his new expensive suits, bought with money from God knows where, and we took a car to Brooklyn. The wine bar was trendy, exposed brick and Edison bulbs, filled with well-dressed couples on date night. David had reserved a table in the back corner, private, intimate, perfect for a meeting you didn't want witnessed. We ordered wine, made small talk. He kept checking his phone. "Expecting something?" I asked lightly. "Just work, you know how it is." He put the phone away. "Sorry, tonight is about us." 20 minutes later, a woman walked into the bar. I recognized her immediately from the Instagram photos. Isabel Moreau, David's real wife. She was even more beautiful in person. Tall, elegant, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She scanned the room, and her eyes landed on our table. For a split second, our eyes met. She knew who I was, probably seen photos of me, studied my social media, helped plan every detail of how David would seduce me. Then she looked away, walked to the bar, ordered a drink. David excused himself. "Restroom, be right back." He walked towards the bathrooms, but detoured to the bar, stood next to Isabel. They didn't look at each other, didn't speak loudly, but I could see their lips moving. They were talking. The federal investigators had told me they'd be here, watching, recording, getting everything they needed. I sat alone at our table, sipping wine, watching my husband conspire with his real wife 20 feet away, and I waited. David returned to the table 5 minutes later, acting like nothing had happened. "Sorry about that. Line for the restroom was ridiculous." "No problem. I ordered another bottle of wine. We're celebrating, right?" "Right." He raised his glass. "To us, to our future." I clinked my glass against his, holding his gaze. To the truth finally coming out. Something flickered in his eyes. Confusion, maybe suspicion. But before he could respond, a man in a dark suit appeared at our table. "David Moreau." David looked up. "Yes?" The man held out a badge. "Special Agent Marcus Chen, Department of Homeland Security. I need you to come with me." Every drop of color drained from David's face. "What? Why? I haven't done anything." "You're being detained for suspected immigration fraud and bigamy. You have the right to remain silent." The entire bar went quiet. People were staring. Phones were coming out. David looked at me, panic in his eyes. "Claire, I don't understand. What's happening?" "I know about Isabel." My voice was calm, steady. "I know you're already married. I know you used me for a green card. I know everything." His mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. At the bar, another agent was approaching Isabel. Her eyes went wide. She tried to bolt for the door, but they caught her. "Isabel Moreau, you're also being detained for conspiracy to commit immigration fraud." She screamed something in French, struggled against the agent, made a scene that would definitely make it onto Instagram, but not the way she'd planned. David was still staring at me. You knew this whole time?" "Not the whole time, just long enough to gather evidence. Screenshots of your messages with Isabel, photos of you two together, your marriage certificate from Lyon, bank records showing you've been receiving money from her, everything." "Claire, please, I can explain." "Don't, just don't." I stood up, grabbed my purse. "You used me, lied to me, married me while already married to someone else. You committed federal crimes and tried to make me an accessory. So no, David, you can't explain. You can just face the consequences." The agents led him away in handcuffs. Isabel was screaming at him in French. I didn't understand the words, but the fury was universal. The entire bar was silent. Every phone recording, every patron witnessing the most dramatic date night they'd ever seen. Rachel appeared at my side. She'd been sitting at another table the whole time, part of the plan. "You okay?" "Not even a little bit." "Want to get out of here?" "God, yes." We walked out of that wine bar together, leaving David and Isabel to their federal charges and their destroyed scheme, and for the first time in weeks, I could breathe. The legal aftermath was complicated and exhausting. First, I had to officially annul my marriage to David. Since he'd been already married to Isabel, our marriage was legally void from the start, but it still required paperwork, lawyers, court appearances. Then there were the depositions. I spent hours being questioned by federal prosecutors, going over every detail of my relationship with David, providing evidence, explaining how he'd manipulated me. The trial happened about 8 months later. Both David and Isabel were charged with immigration fraud, conspiracy, and bigamy. I had to testify, had to sit in a courtroom and recount how I'd been scammed, used, manipulated. David wouldn't look at me during my testimony, just stared at the defense table, his expensive suit replaced with a standard courtroom outfit, his confident charm completely gone. Isabel, however, glared at me the entire time, as if I was the villain in this story, as if I'd ruined their brilliant plan instead of being their victim. The prosecutor asked me, "When did you realize David never loved you?" I thought about it carefully. I think part of me always knew something was off, but I wanted to believe he loved me. I was lonely, and loneliness makes you ignore red flags, makes you accept explanations that don't quite make sense, makes you grateful that someone like him would choose someone like me. And now? Now I know that real love doesn't come with a visa deadline. It doesn't require you to rescue someone. It doesn't make you feel anxious and uncertain all the time. Real love is honest, and what David gave me was a performance. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. David was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, followed by deportation to France. Isabel got 3 years, then deportation. Both were permanently banned from entering the United States. Sandra helped me understand the civil options. You can sue them both for fraud, for the money you spent, for emotional damages. What would I actually recover? Probably nothing. They don't have assets in the US, but it would be on record and it might help with closure. I thought about whether dragging this out in civil court would make me feel better or just keep me trapped in the past. I just want to move on, I told Sandra. I want this nightmare to be over. Then it's over. You're free, Claire. Free. The word sounded hollow, like it should mean more than it did. But freedom didn't feel the way I expected. I thought I'd feel relieved when it was all over. Instead, I felt empty, hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left nothing but a shell. I threw myself into work, took on extra projects, volunteered for the accounts no one else wanted, worked late every night so I didn't have to go home to my apartment, the apartment where David lived, where we played house, where every corner held memories of lies. I avoided relationships entirely, deleted my dating apps, made excuses when friends tried to set me up. The idea of trusting someone again, of being vulnerable, of believing someone could actually love me, it seemed impossible. Rachel staged an intervention about 4 months after the trial. She showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning with bagels and coffee and refused to leave until I talked to her. "Claire, you're killing yourself, working 80-hour weeks, avoiding everyone, shutting down emotionally. What David did was horrible, but you can't let him win by destroying yourself." "I'm not destroying myself, I'm focusing on my career." "You're hiding, there's a difference." She set down her coffee and looked at me seriously. "You need to talk to someone, a therapist, someone who specializes in fraud victims, relationship trauma, whatever you want to call it, because this isn't healthy." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're depressed. You're isolated. You're letting one terrible person convince you that everyone is terrible, and that's not true." I wanted to argue, to insist I was handling things, but sitting there in my apartment on a Saturday morning, alone except for my best friend who'd forced her way in, Rachel was right. I wasn't fine. I found a therapist named Dr. Angela Torres who specialized in fraud victims and relationship trauma. Spent an hour every week in her office unpacking everything that had happened. "You're experiencing betrayal trauma," she explained during one of our early sessions. When someone we trust fundamentally violates that trust, especially in the context of an intimate relationship, it doesn't just hurt emotionally, it changes how we see the world, how we see ourselves. How do I trust people again? How do I know someone isn't lying? You can't know for certain. That's the uncomfortable truth. There's always risk in relationships, always vulnerability. But the alternative, shutting everyone out, never risking connection, that's not really living. So I'm supposed to just pretend this didn't happen, date again, and hope I don't get scammed? No. You acknowledge what happened, you learn from it, you pay attention to red flags you might have ignored before, but you also recognize that David was an outlier. Most people aren't professional fraudsters. Most relationships aren't elaborate cons. It sounded logical, but emotionally, I was still terrified. Dr. Torres gave me homework. Reconnect with friends, say yes to social invitations, practice small acts of trust, letting people help me, sharing feelings, being vulnerable in low-stakes situations. It was harder than any project I'd ever managed at work, but slowly, gradually, I started feeling human again. About 10 months after the trial, I got a letter from David. It was forwarded through Sandra. Inmates weren't allowed to contact victims directly, but he'd apparently written to my lawyer requesting it be passed along. I almost burned it without reading, but curiosity won out. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten, his English less polished on paper than it had been in person. Claire, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to read this, but my lawyer suggested I attempt to make amends where possible. You deserved better than what I did to you. You were kind, generous. You loved me, or at least you loved who you thought I was, and I used that love as a tool. I could make excuses, tell you about how desperate Isabel and I were to both get permanent residency in the US, how France's economy made it impossible for us to build the life we wanted, how the immigration system left us no legal options. But those are just excuses. I made choices. I lied to you. I married you under false pretenses. I hurt you. The truth is, you were never real to me. You were always a means to an end. I knew exactly what to say to make you fall for me. I studied your social media, learned what you valued, became the man you needed. It was calculated, cruel. I told myself you wouldn't really be hurt because you'd get something out of it too. Companionship for a while, someone to share your life with. I convinced myself it was mutually beneficial, but I was lying to myself as much as I was lying to you. You weren't a green card. You were a person who deserved honesty and real love. I'm sorry I couldn't give you that. I'll serve my sentence and be deported. I'll never be allowed back in the US. Isabel and I will probably divorce. She blames me for getting caught, says I was sloppy. Maybe she's right. I hope you find someone who actually deserves you, someone honest. I'm sorry, for whatever that's worth. David. I read the letter 3 times, trying to figure out if he was sincere or just another manipulation, trying to decide if an apology from the man who'd scammed me meant anything at all. Dr. Torres and I discussed it in our next session. How does the letter make you feel? She asked. Angry? Sad? Confused? I don't know if he actually means it or if this is just part of his rehabilitation program. Does it even matter? Only if you let it matter, Claire. His apology isn't for you. It's for him, his conscience, his redemption narrative, his ability to sleep at night. You don't owe him forgiveness. You don't owe him anything. Does knowing he's sorry change anything? Does it? I thought about it, long and hard, and realized, no, it didn't. Whether he was sorry or not, whether he'd learned anything or not, whether he regretted his choices or not, none of that changed what he'd done. None of it gave me back the year of my life he'd stolen. None of it erased the trauma. I never wrote back, but I did something I hadn't done since before I met him. I went on a date. His name was Michael. I met him through a work connection. He was a graphic designer collaborating with my firm on a campaign. We'd worked together for weeks before he asked to go on coffee. "Just coffee," he said quickly when he saw my hesitation. "No pressure. I just think you're interesting and I'd like to get to know you outside of marketing briefs." I almost said no. Every instinct screamed to protect myself, to stay safe, to avoid the risk. But I thought about what Dr. Torres said, about choosing to live instead of just surviving. Okay, coffee sounds nice. We met at a cafe in the West Village, talked for 2 hours about everything except work. He told me about his family, chaotic and loving, nothing like the tragic estrangement David had invented. His passion for typography and design, his terrible apartment in Queens that he actually lived in, messy and real, not a staged Airbnb. He asked about me, my work, my dreams, what I did for fun. Normal questions, no probing for vulnerabilities, no manufacturing of artificial intimacy. At the end, he said, "I had a great time. Can we do this again?" My first instinct was to say no, to run, to protect myself, but I forced myself to push past the fear. Yeah, I'd like that. But fair warning though, I'm coming out of a really bad situation. I might be paranoid sometimes. About trust, about whether people are being honest. Okay, do you want to tell me about it? My ex-husband used me for a green card. Turned out he was already married. The whole relationship was fraud. He went to prison. Jesus, Claire, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I just wanted you to know so you understand if I'm weird about things. That's not weird. That's trauma, and it's completely understandable. He smiled gently. For what it's worth, I'm not trying to scam you. I'm just a graphic designer who thinks you're smart and funny and would like to get to know you better. Is that okay? Yeah, I said, feeling something in my chest loosen slightly. Michael and I took things slowly, very slowly. He was patient with my paranoia, my need to verify things, my moments of panic when something reminded me of David. "Want to see where I live?" he offered after our fourth date. "I promise it's a real apartment with my actual stuff in it. I might Google Earth your address." That's fair. He lived in a tiny studio in Astoria with mismatched furniture, graphic design posters on the walls, and a shelf of books about typography. It was cluttered and lived in and completely real. Nothing like David's carefully staged space. We took our time. No rushing, no visa deadlines, no manufactured urgency. After 3 months, he asked if we wanted to make things official, like boyfriend-girlfriend official. I know that sounds middle school, but I want to be clear about what we are. I want that too, but Michael, I need you to know I'm probably going to be difficult sometimes. I'm probably going to doubt things, question your motives, need reassurance. I can handle difficult. What I can't handle is dishonesty. So here's my promise. I will always tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it makes me look bad. Deal? Deal. We shook hands like we were signing a contract. Then he kissed me, and for the first time since David, it felt real. It's been 2 years now since the wedding that never happened, since David's real wife crashed my celebration and exposed his fraud, since federal agents arrested them both and my whole life imploded. Michael and I just moved in together, a new apartment in Brooklyn, far from the West Village place that held too many memories. We took our time deciding, made sure we were both ready, had honest conversations about finances and expectations and what we both needed. No secrets, no hidden agendas, just two people building something real. My career is thriving. I finally started my own agency. Small, just me and 2 employees so far, but it's mine. Built on my own work, my own reputation, my own merit. I still see Dr. Torres occasionally, though less frequently now. The trauma doesn't control my life anymore. I have bad days, sure. Moments when I question whether I'm seeing things clearly, whether people are being honest. But they're moments, not my entire existence. David was deported after serving 3.5 years. According to Sandra, he's back in France. I don't know what he's doing, and I don't care. Isabel served her full 3 years and was also deported. Last I heard, she and David did divorce. Turns out getting caught committing federal crimes together isn't great for a marriage. Rachel is still my best friend, still calls me out when I'm being ridiculous, still shows up with coffee when I need it. She was right about everything, and I tell her that regularly. I know, that's why you keep me around. Last month, something unexpected happened. I was having lunch with a potential client when a woman approached our table. She looked nervous, apologetic. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but are you Claire Thompson, the woman who—" She paused, clearly uncomfortable. "Who exposed an immigration fraud scheme?" I finished for her. "Yeah, that's me." "I'm sorry, this is so awkward, but I think I'm dating someone who might be doing the same thing to me, and I saw your story in the news, and I don't know what to do." I excused myself from my client meeting and sat with this stranger for an hour, listened to her story, so similar to mine it was eerie. Foreign boyfriend, visa problems, sudden marriage proposal, growing distance after the wedding. "Have you looked at his phone?" I asked. "I feel like that's wrong." "It's also wrong to commit immigration fraud using you as an accomplice. Look at the phone. Document everything. Talk to an immigration lawyer immediately." I gave her Sandra's contact information, told her about the warning signs I'd missed, explained the legal process. "Thank you," she said, tears in her eyes. "I've been so scared. Everyone tells me I'm paranoid, that I should trust my husband, but something feels wrong." "Trust that feeling. Your instincts are trying to protect you." She hugged me. "You probably saved my life, or at least my green card application record." After she left, my client looked at me with newfound respect. "That was incredibly kind of you." She deserved to know the truth. Everyone does. That encounter made me realize something. My experience, as painful as it was, had value, not just for me, but for others. I started writing about it, posted on Medium about the warning signs of green card fraud. The article went viral. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments from people who'd experienced similar situations or were currently in them. I was invited to speak at immigration law conferences, to train USCIS officers on identifying fraud patterns, to help advocacy organizations support victims. "You've become the face of marriage fraud awareness," Sandra told me, after I gave a presentation at a legal symposium. "That's a weird thing to be known for, but an important one. You're helping people protect themselves, helping catch fraudsters before they victimize more people." She was right. What David had done to me was horrible, but using that experience to help others, that gave it meaning, turned my trauma into purpose. Rachel got married last year, real marriage, to someone who actually loved her. I was her maid of honor. Standing in the bridal suite watching her get ready, I had a flashback to my own almost wedding, to the moment Rachel burst in to tell me David's real wife was downstairs. "You okay?" she asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah, just remembering." "The worst day of your life that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to you?" I laughed, something like that. Her wedding was beautiful, simple ceremony in upstate New York, heartfelt vows, happy tears, everything a wedding should be. During the reception, Michael found me standing alone, watching couples dance. "Want to dance?" He offered his hand. "I'm not great at it." "Neither am I. We'll figure it out together." We swayed awkwardly on the dance floor, stepping on each other's feet, laughing. "You know what's funny?" I said. "David was a great dancer, smooth, confident, knew exactly what he was doing. Should I be jealous?" "No, because he was performing. You're just being real, and real is so much better." Michael kissed me there on the dance floor, surrounded by people celebrating actual love, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. If you're reading this and you've been through something similar, if you've been scammed, used, manipulated by someone who saw you as nothing more than a citizenship pathway, I want you to know it's not your fault. Fraudsters are professionals. They're skilled at finding vulnerabilities and exploiting them. They study you, become whoever you need them to be, create entire relationships designed to extract what they want. Being fooled by someone like that doesn't make you stupid, it makes you human. It means you were capable of trust, of love, of hoping for connection. Those are good qualities, even if someone took advantage of them. Yes, learn from the experience. Pay attention to red flags, whirlwind romances that move unusually fast, visa problems that conveniently emerge early in the relationship, vague employment details despite expensive lifestyle, resistance to meeting family or integrating friend groups, secretiveness about phones, computers, or personal life, relationships that change dramatically after marriage. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate, protect yourself. But don't let one terrible person convince you that everyone is terrible. Don't let betrayal destroy your capacity for connection. Most people aren't con artists. Most relationships aren't elaborate frauds. Most love is real. It took me 2 years to believe that again, but I do now. My name is Claire Thompson. I'm 31 years old. I'm a marketing executive and agency owner in New York City. 2 years ago, my fiancé's real wife showed up at our wedding venue and exposed his entire immigration fraud scheme in front of my family and friends. It was humiliating, devastating, the worst moment of my life. It was also my liberation, because that public exposure forced me to confront the truth I'd been avoiding. I'd made myself small, accommodating, grateful, because I didn't believe I deserved better. David didn't just scam me for a green card. He showed me that I'd been scamming myself, pretending I was happy when I was anxious, pretending his behavior was normal when it was suspicious, pretending our relationship was solid when it was built on lies. The woman that walked into that venue wearing an $8,000 dress to marry a fraud, she's gone. The woman I am now knows her worth, knows what real love looks like, knows that being alone is better than being with someone who sees you as a transaction. I hope David found whatever he was looking for. I hope France is treating him well. I hope he learned something from prison. But mostly, I just hope he stays far away from lonely women who deserve better than being someone's citizenship strategy. Michael proposed last month. Nothing dramatic. Just the two of us on our apartment rooftop at sunset with a ring he'd designed himself. "I love you," he said, "not because you can solve my problems or save me from anything, just because you're you, and I want to build a real life with you. Is that okay?" I said yes. We're planning a small wedding, just close friends and family. No big venue, no 200 guests, no opportunities for dramatic revelations. Rachel will be my maid of honor again. This time, she won't have to burst in with news of secret wives. "You're sure about this?" she asked when I told her. "Getting married again after everything?" "I'm sure, because this time it's real. Michael knows everything about me, my trauma, my paranoia, my baggage, and he chose me anyway. Not because I'm useful, because he actually loves me." "Good. But if his secret wife shows up, I'm not warning you. I'm just fighting her." I laughed. "Deal." David sent one more letter about 6 months ago. It was shorter this time. "Claire, I read your article about marriage fraud. You're helping people. That's more than I ever did. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. David." I didn't respond. Didn't need to. He was right about one thing, though. I am helping people, turning my trauma into purpose, using my experience to protect others from going through what I went through. And yeah, I'm happy, actually happy, not performing happiness to convince myself or anyone else. I have a partner who's honest, a career I built myself, friends who showed up when everything fell apart, a therapist who helped me heal, a life that's mine. The wedding that never happened taught me more about love than any wedding that did. It taught me that real love doesn't come with ultimatums or emergencies. It doesn't require you to rescue someone or ignore your instincts. It doesn't make you feel constantly anxious or uncertain. Real love feels safe, honest, like partnership instead of performance. And that's what I have now. So to David and Isabel, wherever you are, thank you for showing me what I don't want. Thank you for crashing and burning so spectacularly that I couldn't deny the truth anymore. Thank you for teaching me in the most painful way possible what real actually looks like. I hope you both learned something too, but mostly, I just hope you stay far away from people looking for real love, because they deserve better than being your green card. Where they are now. Claire Thompson, age 31, living in Brooklyn with her fiancé, Michael, successfully running her own marketing agency with 5 employees, regular speaker at immigration law conferences about fraud prevention, published multiple articles on relationship fraud, planning a small, intimate wedding for next spring, fully healed from the trauma and thriving both personally and professionally. David Moreau, deported to France after serving 3.5 years of his 5-year sentence, currently living in Lyon, divorced from Isabel, permanently banned from the United States, last known to be working in IT support, attempted to contact Claire twice through letters, she never responded. Isabel Moreau, deported to France after serving her full 3-year sentence, divorced from David, blaming him for the failed scheme, permanently banned from the U.S., last known to be running a small online art business in Paris, reportedly attempted similar schemes in other countries but has been unsuccessful. Michael Chen, Claire's fiancé, age 32, graphic designer specializing in brand identity, born and raised in New York to Chinese-American parents, met Claire through work and patiently helped her rebuild trust, designed her engagement ring himself, planning their wedding together with complete transparency and honesty. Rachel Martinez, Claire's best friend since college, age 30, married to her longtime partner James, works as a financial advisor, was Claire's maid of honor at the wedding that never happened and will be again at the real wedding, takes credit for saving Claire's life regularly, which Claire doesn't dispute. Sandra Martinez, immigration attorney, age 52, still practicing in Manhattan, has become a specialist in marriage fraud cases and works closely with federal authorities, frequently called as an expert witness, credits Claire's case as one of the most impactful of her career, now trains other lawyers on identifying fraud patterns. The federal investigators received commendations for shutting down what turned out to be part of a larger fraud network. David and Isabel's case led to investigations of similar schemes across multiple cities, estimated they prevented at least 30 additional fraudulent marriages. Claire's parents, initially devastated by the public humiliation, but rallied around their daughter. Her mother now tells the story at book club as "that time some French woman crashed Claire's wedding." They love Michael and are thrilled about the upcoming wedding. Her father has already walked her down the aisle once to marry a fraud and jokes that this time he's checking IDs. The immigration fraud victims Claire helped, at least 15 women have contacted Claire after reading her articles or seeing her speak. Most successfully escaped fraudulent relationships before filing green card applications. 3 testified in their own cases, leading to additional convictions. A support group was formed, which Claire participates in occasionally. The $8,000 Vera Wang dress returned to the bridal boutique, which gave Claire a full refund given the circumstances. The boutique later sold it to another bride at a discount with full disclosure of its history. That bride thought it was hilarious and wore it proudly, saying it represented dodging bullets. The wedding venue still operates in Manhattan. The staff sometimes tell the story of the wedding where the real wife showed up when couples ask about dramatic events. They offered Claire a discount for a future wedding. She politely declined and chose a different venue to avoid the memories. Final reflection. Love isn't rescue. It isn't solving someone's immigration crisis or financial emergency or family drama. It isn't making yourself smaller to accommodate their secrets. It isn't ignoring red flags because you're afraid of being alone. Real love is partnership. 2 whole people choosing each other, not because they need to, but because they want to. I learned that the hard way. Spent a year being someone's green card solution while thinking I was someone's partner. The difference between those two things cost me money, dignity, and a year of my life. But here's what I gained: clarity, strength, the knowledge that I can survive public humiliation and come out stronger, the certainty that I deserve honesty, respect, and real love. I know now what manipulation looks like. I know the difference between genuine vulnerability and performed helplessness. I know that someone who truly loves you won't build your entire relationship on an emergency that only you can solve. The wedding that never happened was the best thing that never happened to me, because it forced me to see the truth, forced me to value myself, forced me to understand that being loved isn't about being useful, it's about being cherished for who you are, not what you can provide. David taught me what I don't want. Michael is showing me what I do want, and that makes all the difference. My name is Claire Thompson. I'm a marketing executive who got scammed by a man pretending to love me so he could get a green card. His real wife crashed our wedding and exposed the whole thing. I had them both arrested, testified in federal court, and watched them get deported. It was the most humiliating experience of my life. It was also my liberation. And 2 years later, I can finally say, I'm grateful. Not grateful for the pain, but grateful for the lesson, grateful for the strength, grateful for the clarity, grateful that I learned what real love looks like by experiencing the counterfeit version first. The counterfeit almost destroyed me. The real thing is healing me. And that's worth everything I went through to find it.